the church has always been for the poor, and it's always tried its best to help wherever it can. We had the Society of Vincent de Paul and Legion of Mary and other organizations for reaching out to those in need. We had in Calcutta the Catholic Charities, which was a small organization by which we were coordinating some of this work. Then came the Bangladesh War, and with that everything got drastically changed. When the Bangladesh War began, I happened to be the Vicar General of Calcutta, and so naturally I had some responsibility to help out the thousands of refugees that were clubbing into Calcutta. And Catholic Charities was not able to handle that problem. The one in charge was Father Vitov, an elderly Jesuit Belgian. And so Cardinal Picacci told me if I would do what I could to help the situation of the Bangladeshi refugees. And with that I began to find ways and means by which I would be able to help them. And I appointed, I think, Father Bottain to take over the responsibility, as he was the very active in social work in Ragapur, in South 24 Parganas. After a few days he came and he said, it is too big for me to handle, and he gave it back to me. Then I told Cardinal Picacci, perhaps we do not know the nature of the work. Will I take leave from my work as Vicar General and do this work for Catholic Charities? And he gave me permission immediately to do what I wanted to do. And so I stopped getting involved in the job of Vicar General and began to visit the refugee camps, particularly what were in Salt Lake, then going along as far as the Bangladesh border. I began to visit all the various places where the refugees were coming in hundreds and thousands. And so I began with that, an organization. It was still called Catholic Charities, and we began to work to make godowns for the sake of storing the relief materials that were coming. Grain was coming, blankets, tarpaulins, tents, oil, milk, biscuits, all kinds of things were coming. And we had no place to store them. I was lucky that the sisters, the Loreto sisters, offered me their ground which was lying vacant, and on that ground I made a godown and put in things that were there. And then it became too small. I made another godown of the basement of Morning Star College, where they also had space, and that also got filled with supplies. And I had to order, take over several godowns in the city. This meant also a lot of other work, such as hiring cars, vehicles, trucks, lorries, person, in order to reach all these supplies to the places where we had to go and distribute the work. And the work went from the docks to the godowns, and from the godowns all along the border down north as far as Bangladesh, and along the border, this side, it went on as far as even Guwahati and the eastern side of Bangladesh. The work became so very big that finally the office in Delhi, which was known then also as Catholic Charities, the office in Delhi decided to open an office in Calcutta. And they opened an office here in Calcutta, somewhere on Lansdowne Road. Father Patrick D'Souza was the one who started the office along with Father Aloysius Fernandez. I had a place where I was keeping people who were staying overnight and a hospice for them. And so the work, as it were, moved away from my hands into the hands of the office of Delhi. That was, and it came to be known as Caritas. So Caritas office took over the distribution all over, and I kept only that distribution which pertained to the Archdiocese of Calcutta. And so I was working in Salt Lake and upwards towards Bamandanga, right up to Bongaon, the border of Bengal. I was operating and assisting people. I had a lot of volunteers and so on. And so that was the beginning of the Catholic Charities in Calcutta. And after the main work was over and we finally wound down the operation, I handed over everything to Father Hendricks. And Father Hendricks took over very nicely, and he did a very good job too. And he changed the name from Catholic Charities to Seva Kendra. When I'm looking back at that particular period of struggle, challenge, opportunity, and the necessity to reach out to thousands of people, I can only be grateful that somehow that operation worked out well, and today we have this organization of Seva Kendra, of which we are today seeing its development. What is interesting for me is that while we began therefore as a relief organization, we slowly went into a developmental organization. And so we began to look forward to do things for people such as digging tube wells to get good water, such as also building houses or making open tanks and so on. All these things were done in the desire to open up to development. Meantime, I left Seva Kendra and left also Calcutta, because I became the Archbishop of Calcutta Bhubaneswar in Orissa. And I was appointed then as the director for Caritas. And I soon realized, when I was there as director for Caritas, I soon realized that it was not sufficient to be in development. You had also to have self-support. And we began to work on self-help groups. And so we had quite a number of self-help groups by which small communities were helped to start industries, do something for themselves. What makes me happy is that by the time I had handed over, I handed over the work already then, but by the time I returned to Calcutta, Seva Kendra had already been moving in that direction. It received, of course, a very special movement ahead when Father Reggie Fernandez took over and became the director for Seva Kendra, because he worked on a big way for making better self-help groups and multiplying them all over. Because of the self-help groups, wherever there was a flood or a calamity, the people could immediately get aid. And this was so evident in North Calcutta there, next to Krishnagar, where we had the sisters, SMI sisters, who had done a great job making those self-help groups. So that when the food went as far as it could go because of a flood, the people from the various villages and various places where they could get some shelter, they would come and they would identify the people who were in need and would take the food or whatever was needed to the spot itself. And the self-help groups did a wonderful job during those calamities. And as I look back on all this period, I certainly feel quite happy and glad that Catholic Charities moved from pure charity to development, from development to self-improvement and self-sufficiency. And I hope that it will continue to grow in the directions that it should, given the new challenges that are facing Catholic charity. We are today, in this year 2013, and many things have happened during the last decade. And in a special way, I would like to mention how important it is now for us to be concerned with education, to be concerned with health, and to be concerned with elderly people, and the new categories of poverty that are emerging. We have spent a lot of time and we've done a lot for people on the streets, most of which, at least in Calcutta, is man-made because political power was there for those who live on the streets. And as soon as we can clear the streets and give to all a proper living accommodation, it would be better. But that's the political solution, to which the Seva Kendra is addressing in some way by its programs for street children and several other programs for street children. Mother Teresa too is still busy with that. But what we need to take a special concern for is the emerging lower income groups who are looking for education, who are desiring education, and for whom also there's a great need of assistance in time of illness. The health care is in shambles. The government machinery is not working. And the educational system is also in shambles. Teachers are there, but no teaching is done. The quality of education is down. And so people are looking for good education, looking for health, at least reasonable health. And with that, we are seeing an opening up of all kinds of diagnostic centers, and in which all this is available but at such a high cost. Seva Kendra has to address this problem in terms of poverty of the poor classes, the middle classes, and those who can't afford to pay the very high fees in a quality school or a very high fees for healthcare, whether it be for a open heart surgery or whether it be for a simple operation in any hospital of a decent nature. And maybe this is the challenge. The poverty of today is not really the poverty of starvation or the poverty of absolute deprivation. The poverty of today is that we require a quality of life. And for this quality of life, the middle class poor, whom I usually call the bashful poor, they're too bashful to beg and they cannot steal. And so they are the bashful poor. How do we reach out to them so that they can get some reasonable quality of life in housing, in health, in education, and so on? Maybe in the Ruby Jubilee of Seva Kendra, we'll want to consider the various dimensions of poverty as they are coming to us today, and where these dimensions of poverty can be reasonably met by a change of policy, by a new way of approaching education and healthcare, and in some way improving the condition of the human society in Calcutta.